Welcome to this look at the Precision Farming free DLC on Farming Simulator 19, Part 3, with me, MrSealyp. We are back in Erlengrat for Part 3 of the look at the Precision Farming free DLC. I want to start off by saying it's kind of like a film trilogy. The first one introduces everything, sets the scene, and we kind of get going. Part 2 kind of went through the main body of what was going on. Was it as exciting as part 1? Maybe, maybe not. Does it get a little bit confusing in places? Absolutely. This is part 3. Hopefully, this is the one that wraps everything up and kind of neatly packages everything. So, another couple of things that need to be said. These 3 videos, part 1, 2 and 3, are an overview of the Precision Farming DLC. I always start off by saying, welcome to this look at. It is a look at. This is not a deep delve, a deep dive into all of the nuts and bolts and nitty gritty, because as I've been trying to put across, and I don't know if I've put across it as well as I could have or should have. And I know a lot of people out there I haven't been on the comments again, I still haven't been onto the comments, but I've had a few direct messages from people. I know loads of you out there are testing away like mad. You're doing field tests and you're doing yield tests and and that's absolutely fantastic. And that's what I said from part 1 and 2. The more people that get on, the more people that do testing, the more people that spend time analysing the data they're getting back, builds a bigger and better picture. But here's the thing. For me personally, any test video that I've ever done, and I've done quite a few test videos in the past, I like to do it in a fairly scientific manner, in that if I'm testing for something, I've got an objective I'm aiming for, I will change one variable at a time to see what difference that makes. I think where I've got a little bit flummoxed, I suppose, with this new DLC, as I kind of mentioned in the previous 2 episodes, there are so many variables that can change on one map. You imagine then taking that to every map that this will work on, and that's another question I was asked. Does the DLC work on every map? Someone commented to me saying that unless the soil, the 4 soil types have been added in onto a map, it won't work. Have I been on and tested it on every single map that's been released? Absolutely not. I haven't. So that's another question that could be answered. So because there are so many variables on so many different maps, on so many different fields, every map will be different, every field will be different. So even if you have gone away and on one field you've done a load of tests, you've got a load of results, are those results definitive? Yes, for that field. Are they definitive for the entire DLC? Possibly, but maybe not. Are they definitive for every single map and every single field? No, because all the fields are going to be different because of the way they're laid out. Like we said before, if we look at the map here, just looking at the different soil types on those 3 fields, you then bring that out to the entire map, that's going to look vastly different over this map. That will look vastly different over every map. So even if I do a load of yield testing and get a load of data from field 20, that's going to be different to field 19. Not just because of the size, but because of all the other relevant data. That will be different to field 13, to field 8, you kind of get the picture. So this is an overview. This isn't, I have answered some questions. I'm going to hope to answer some more. But are we going to get definitive answers to every question you're going to ask or want to ask? No, you're not. And I apologise to those people that think I should be providing those answers. I kind of get a feeling I know where the comments are going to go when I finally get onto them. And I know that within probably 5 or 6 hours of this DLC releasing, there will be plenty of people out there who are absolute experts and know with 100% certainty every single aspect of this. And if you are one of those people, great, absolutely fantastic, good for you. I'm a lay person. I'm a fairly normal guy playing the game and working this out kind of along with everyone else. So as far as what I did in part 2, and I apologise that's taken a little while to get to this point, If I go across into my pH levels are fine. You put your lime down. You can't lime, then lime again and lime again. You can't over apply lime. That's where I'm looking at for my lime. Can't do much about that. When it comes to my nitrogen, this is where things get a little bit weirder. You saw at the end of the last episode that I was able to come back over field 19 and apply multiple coatings, I guess, of manure and then liquid fertilizer, which again I said you could do with slurry, you could do with digestate, you could do with dry fertilizer, granules. And it allowed me to go back over, back over, back over. So as you can see, pretty much all of that field now is looking up around 200 kilograms per hectare, which in your mind you think, well, that's where you want to be, don't you? Maximum fertilizer. And it allowed me to go over and over and over. I must have done in some parts of that field 5 or 6 different layers of fertilizing. This field 20 is going to be my kind of my base test level. That one was a cultivated in crop. I then did my liming. I did 1 manure spread. I did 1 liquid fertilizer spread. Both of these fields have now got wheat in, and I'm going to grow them. Because what I'm going to be interested to look at is the yield data. Because if I look on these fields now, if you look at field info down the bottom right, as I go across this field, it's saying pH value is looking good. Nitrogen good, but as I go across different parts of the map, come on, the field, please do it. Nitrogen's looking good, bad. There we go. I'm going to section this as nitrogen bad. 200 kilograms of 140. So that's where I've over applied. Now that's saying that's bad. For the particular soil type, that's not good at all. So over applying and putting it across that entire field, is that actually going to help my yield or not? Is it going to hinder it? If I go across this one, where I just did 1 of each, I've got nitrogen saying perfect there, pH perfect, nitrogen perfect. To go across, I get goods, perfect, good. I think I had a couple when I went across earlier saying okay. There you go. Nothing on this one saying bad at all. So the interesting thing is going to be you're looking at our yield and economic analysis when these fields are grown and I've harvested them. Looking at the economic screen, looking at the yield data, because it will also give me, when we get to that page, we'll see, it will give me a rundown of how much I've actually spent, how much fertilizer I put down, how much manure I put down. So even if this one yields very well, I could still make more profit per hectare on this one by doing a minimum, because by over applying on my nitrogen, that could have had a detrimental effect. Plus the yield could be great, but if I've spent out way more and putting 5-6 layers of fertilizer down, my costs are going to outweigh what I make. So that's what I'm fascinated to see. I've also been told there's a whole load more data if you put it on seasons. You can adjust weed variables, you can adjust, honestly, I haven't even begun to look at that. That is a whole nother can of worms. So, time to grow. We're going to get this growing, we're going to see where we're at. We should get our results in, get some harvesting done, and we'll have a look at our yield data and we'll see really what the difference has been. We're back. And as you can see, harvesting is underway. I may have set up a wheat in the ground earlier, I meant barley, but regardless. Bottom left hand corner, we've got a live GPS field of what we are getting yield related. Now we can already see there's a load of green, but I've got orange, I've got yellow, and we need to have a look at that in a little bit more detail. We're going to have our yield and economy screens to have a look at later on, but this is just the live feed as we're going across the field. So as we can see, it's looking good up this side. This is the field that I over applied nitrogen right up to pretty much 200 kilograms per hectare across the entire field. But if I go across from my yield filter to my soil types and back again, you can see on the left hand strip that my yields are matching up pretty much with the soil type. So where I've got the sandy loam, we've got some yellows. Where I've got my loamy sand, I've got some oranges. Where I'm on my just loam on its own, I've got some really nice deep greens. And it matches up pretty well with what the soil types are. So it answers another question. if you go maximum nitrogen, which in your head you're like, yep, we need to get maximum fertilizing, because before 100% fertilizer, that's what you needed to reach. But that's wrong for the soil type. There is a nitrogen level that needs to be right for the soil type. So can you over apply nitrogen? Absolutely you can. We've seen that now. I seriously over applied nitrogen on this field, and I'm now getting yield deficits. I've got some of those that are down in 85%. So I've got in the 80s, maybe some 80s, and I've got in the orange 65%. That's a massive yield deficit because I over applied. Now what's going to be very telling is when we move on to field 20, because field 20 is the field that our nitrogen levels we put on as it said we should. I set it on automatic, I didn't over apply, I didn't go over it multiple times. That one, we should get a much better yield result. But also what you can see now, once you've harvested, it takes me back to a kind of base level nitrogen settings. Not as bad though as it is on field 18. If you look at how orange it is on field 18 for nitrogen, field 19 is actually not looking too bad at all. Certainly not another really deep oranges as yet, but does it mean, again this answers another question, when I've done a harvest, do I need to come back out and take soil samples again? No, I don't. Not straight away, but that then brings up another question. How many harvests can you do before you then need to take soil samples again? Or does it stay indefinitely? Once you've soil sampled the entire map, do you not ever need to do it again? So we've got more questions coming up. We have answered some, but we have got more coming up. So what I'm going to do is go back over to my yield screen. And then hopefully, once this field is done, and the next field is done, actually I'm going to go across this row here because I'm nearly full, we are going to get a good look then at our economy. And I honestly, at this point, I'm now thinking then that the over application, the amount of times I went over it, that's going to have a massive deficit. My yield is not going to be as great as it should have been. The amount I applied is going to cost me far more. So my cost per hectare to do all of the jobs is not going to be reflected in my yield, which means it's not going to be reflected in my top line for my profit. So you know, again, it's all part of the whole, how does it all work? So it's good to see that the live GPS screen down the bottom is working nicely. I will see you when the harvest is complete. So field 19 is now done. If I go back to my screen, there are a couple of anomalies here though. If I look at my yield and then I go across to my soil types, it was kind of following the correct pattern. I say the correct pattern, a correct pattern. But where I've got my sandy loam, the green patch that runs across, that was where I was getting a lot of yellow. But weirdly, I've got the strip running up and down in the line where the harvester is now of very, very high yielding green across a section which I thought then should be yellow. But regardless, you can see now, if you want to get up the precision farming economy tab on the field itself, I need to be on the field, so I'm on field 19. If I press R3 like so, we get the economic analysis come up. Now what's strange about this, total values since last reset. Now what's strange is that is supposed to tell me how many soil samples were taken, how much lime was put down, mineral fertilizer, liquid fertilizer, manure, slurry, seeds, fuel. I've got no values for any of that. So my question is why? Because that's what's supposed to give me all the information I need. Now my fuel is still burning fuel. So I've got a cost of fuel, vehicle maintenance, AI helper. My yield is looking pretty good. Well, say pretty good, could be better. Total cost 1,127. Total earnings 40,000. So deduct one from the other, my total is 39,427. But that's not correct, because I've got nothing on there for lime. And how many times I went over that field again and again and again. The problem is I don't want to reset it and then potentially risk losing that information. Well, I mean, in all honesty, there's not a huge amount of information there. So I'm going to press L3. Yeah, that puts it all back to 0. I'm a bit disappointed with that, because that was supposed to show me So then if you look at the bottom directly below the field, it says if I do right on the D-pad, clear yield map on field 19. So I can clear that completely if I want to. At this point in the video, I'm going to be totally honest with you. I made a horrible mistake. I was harvesting field 20 and I accidentally clicked on clear yield data. So it cleared all the yield data. So what I decided to do was come out of the game, not save it, go back to my previous save and go again. What I have subsequently found, as you see now, field 19 hasn't been harvested yet. It hasn't even finished growing yet. So I've gone back a few steps. But clicking on the fields now, look at my economic analysis. That is showing me, weirdly, that's showing me my lime. It's showing me the manure I put down, the liquid fertilizer I put down, my seed I put in, my fuel consumption, so what my total costs are. So I'm wondering, weirdly, when I then start to harvest, I seem to lose all that data, but then gain my yield data. I thought it would all stay there, everything at the same time. So I'm a bit puzzled as to why that's there. If I go to field 20, you'll see the same thing. All my data's there. But what is very peculiar is a lot of the figures on that screen there for my lime, my liquid fertilizer, all seem to be in the green. If I go to this one here, my liquid fertilizer and manure are both in the red. It's you need to be a crypto analyst or crypto analyst, is it? Or a forensic accountant or something along those lines to be able to work all this out. But it is showing the data now. So again, I probably might cut some of what I did out before. If I do, you won't know I have. But so on my second time around of doing this, as you can see, as I've already said just now, it's working this time. It's still not showing me how many soil samples I took, but all the rest of the information is fine. What's interesting is the total down the bottom. When I started, it just had my total costs, and that was what my total was sitting at. And it said minus 4,772. As I'm harvesting and it's getting yield in, it's working out, and that's one thing as well. I don't know how it's working out. What my total earnings are. I'm assuming that's taken for the price for barley on the map. So if I sold it now, that's what my earnings will be. If I've got multiple sell points, how does it know where I'm selling it to? Does it take an average across, again, more questions. Does it take an average across the map? If I've put placeables on there, placeable sell points that pay out very well, would it work an average out for that? Or is it just a generic figure? That will require a load more testing. And you could test that for every single sell point, placeable. And again, every map could be different. But yeah, as you can see, that number's coming down. I stopped now because I'm at minus 315 euros. So if I carry on with this bit of harvesting now, we should see, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hire a worker so we can keep an eye on that screen. I'm going to do it from the other end because that's where I want to go to. So we should see that go then from a negative into a positive, where we are now actually making money off the field, which is where we want to be at. So we go minus 280, 273. So the total is now coming down. Our deficit, we then should go into the green and we should be making a profit. Which we now are. That money's going up, so rather than minus, we've now got money, which is great. But again, how does that correlate across to playing it without this deal? I kept referring to the base game. I know this is like using seasons. I refer to the base game in seasons. This is a DLC too, so I suppose this has changed it. This isn't the base game. This is the precision farming DLC. So there are so many comparisons that then could be tested between playing without, playing with. I don't know. This is honestly one of those first times I'm not necessarily confused, but puzzled as to how exactly to go about doing more minute testing. There needs to be, but again, that's what I mean. In my head, I'm now thinking, as I've already mentioned, you could do hundreds of test videos on so many different permutations, trying to find out specific answers to very specific questions. I need to go and get something to fill out. But anyway, as you can see, it is working now. The screen is working. Thank you for bearing with me. What I'm going to do is, like I say, I'm going to get field 19 and I am going to get field 20 finished this time. I'm going to avoid pressing the button that takes away the yield data. I haven't finished with harvesting yet, but this is another thing I wanted to come back to and have a look at, is our pH levels with regard to liming. If you have a look at the screens now, you can see where I haven't harvested yet are a little bit lighter and are better on the pH level, which then calls into question another question. On the game without the precision farming, you lime every 3 harvests. That's just what you need to do. It doesn't ask you to lime until you've done 3 harvests, and it will say you need to lime again. This one, you can see the pH level has changed. I'm harvesting and it's gone back a little bit. Not all the way back, not as bad as it was before I did in liming, but that begs the question, do I need to lime every harvest? I mean, in essence, it wouldn't hurt to go over it again with lime, because it does the automatic application. It's only going to put down what it needs. It's not going to put down more than it needs to. The thing I'm thinking in my head as well now is also with regard to people going out and doing testing and having a look at things themselves. If you're an inquisitive person anyway, you might have already started doing it. One thing I always found when I was teaching, something I always kind of was a mantra of mine, was you can't fill a person full of knowledge. You can't stand in front of a class or a classroom or a group of people and give them knowledge. You can to a degree. How much of that sinks in, but what you can do is try and engage people, and what you can do, and what I always tried to do with the children I taught, was give them a passion to learn, a thirst for knowledge, a thirst to find out. If they were curious then, to then go away and want to find out more, that was more important than just giving them knowledge. It's that give a man a fishing rod, you know, or you give a man a fish, you'll feed him for a day, give him a fishing rod. You know, it's that principle. So if anything that's happened from watching these 3 videos is you've suddenly thought, you know what, I want to test that. I've got a question that I want an answer to. I'm wondering about so-and-so. I'm going to go and do it. That's brilliant. That's absolutely fantastic. I probably at that point couldn't be any happier. I'm wondering why my harvest has stopped, because that's annoying. So, yeah, but I'm now thinking what I'll probably do when I finish this, I'm going to run over with the lime spreader again. It probably doesn't need it. Maybe after 3 harvests it would have dropped to a point where it really does need liming, but I guess it's not going to hurt to. I am stood next to field 19. Both harvests are complete. If we go onto our menu here, we can see for field 20, and this is where things get quite interesting, because based upon when I started off and I did that corner, I thought, well, this is all just based on the soil type, which it kind of is in a way. But if we look at field 19, where I put too much of everything down, my yield was terrible across here. And if I go across my soil types, it matches up really well with the loamy sand, the sandy loam. And I put too much nitrogen down for those 2 types of soil. So I thought, okay, well, that's going to be exactly the same on here then, because that's what it was showing me. But if you look here, on that whole section, my yield isn't actually too bad at all. That section isn't great and could probably do with a bit of work. But if you look at the soil types again, that is in the sandy loam and that is in the sandy loam. Now, if what I thought before was correct, that would have looked exactly the same as that does, but it doesn't. my yield is actually looking pretty good. So a hectare by hectare yield comparison would be that the yield of this one is way better than the yield of this one. Because even on here, the green, the darker green, I'm right up at 125%. Here I'm probably only at 115, I reckon. And that's interesting, the fact that I only did, as I've said so many times before, cultivated a crop. I did 1 lime, 1 manure pass, 1 pass of liquid fertilizer, and that's yielded really well. That one had multiple of everything. But this is where things get even more interesting and even more complicated. If I go to my nitrogen page now, which is my fertilizer, field 18's had nothing done with it really. Field 20, which has just been harvested, looks like that. And I've got some real deep oranges there, no greens whatsoever. Field 19, however, the field that I over-fertilised, I put way too much nitrogen on, has also just been harvested, but look how much more green I've got in there. It's almost like the extra fertiliser I put down on the previous harvest that caused me to have a bit of a yield deficit is still in the ground. Because if both of these fields were exactly the same after harvesting, I would have green spreading up across here, surely. Again, based upon what the ground looks like. We've already looked at the pH, and I could probably put some more lime down, but that's, to me, is fascinating. What can we kind of get from all of this? I would say, for the Precision Farming DLC, and this is by no means set in stone, this is just what I think. If you're a numbers person, a data-driven person, you're going to love this. Because there is so much information there that you can take a screenshot of, write down, analyse to your heart's content, work it out to the nth degree. And that, like I say, that'll be different per farm, per map, per field. You know, all the different variables. You could really go to town and spend so much time going crunching the numbers on this. Absolutely you could. If you're a person that is not data driven, is not numbers bothered, if you really don't care about all that, click that off. And what you have got is a whole interesting new way of looking at doing things by doing soil samples, by having these different map screens, by having the automatic application rates or the manual. It's a whole new element to add to the game. Now, it may be that that doesn't interest you at all either, in which case, don't download it and don't install it. But I think there is something for everyone. For me, I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. I like the idea of it. I like all the extra screens. I like all the extra information. Am I a data-driven person that I will go to the absolute nth degree to overanalyze, or not overanalyze, but analyze everything down to the minute detail? No, I'm not. I'm not going to spend hours and hours doing that. But what I am going to do now is, if I click that back on again, that one says my total should be 9,091. That one says my total should be 11,402. So I'm looking at about 20,000, 20,400, 20,500, something around there is what I should make from both fields. I had 53,000 litres off of this field, 41,000 off that. I think it comes in about 95,000. I've taken that in the lorry, I put it in the railroad silo, and I'm going to send that off to Felsbrunn because Felsbrunn is the best price at the moment. Again, if you're an analytics person, you may be now thinking, I know I've got a lot of people that will always say, when you're running pigs, when you're doing this, when you're doing that, it's not cost effective, you don't make enough money. I've always been of the opinion I'm more about playing the game. I like new elements. If I run pigs for a season, or I run pigs for a year, or whatever I'm doing with them, and I don't end up making much profit, a lot of times I don't really care because I've done pigs, I've fed them, I've gone through the motions of doing the farming. But if you are the sort of person that wants to really see how profitable you can become, how efficient you can become, you can really go bonkers on this. Is that an answer to all your questions? No. This is going to need to be nitrogened, it's going to need to be limed. pH level needs to come up. I may need to. The other thing as well is another question that's just dawned on me. Ploughing. If the field says needs ploughing, does that still have the same effect with precision farming? That if you ploughed the field, ploughing and liming gave you a kind of bonus in yield. Will that be the same with ploughing with the precision farming? I assume so. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be. It should still give you the same bonus that it did before. But does it? A whole nother set of testing that could be done. Right, I'm going to just jump in the train. I'm going to send that off and we'll see what we make. I said it should be around 20,000, didn't I? So yeah, it's craziness. Do I think it's worth it? It's free. Of course it's worth it. Is it an amazing addition? Absolutely. It's incredible what they've managed to do. I know there will also be people arguing, well, if they can do that, why can't they spend time fixing some of the other things, bugs and problems that we've had since the game started? Again, I'm not disagreeing with anyone. Yeah, they probably could have done. There's probably a whole host of things they could have implemented and added rather than this. But it's something new, it's something added. There is going to be more coming to the precision farming as well. We're not quite sure what that's going to be yet, but there will be more on its way. Do I want to sell it at Felsman? Yes, I do. And I made what? Harvest income 78,966. I just sent 90,000 litres off, which is about right, isn't it? So that's very strange, isn't it? If we go back to this menu, when it's saying what my total earnings are, based upon what? Because the earnings don't correlate to... Until I sell my crop, I haven't earned anything. Those earnings are telling me I should have earned about 20,000. But when you look at what the crops are worth and how much I took off the field, how could it be 20,000? That's even allowing for taking off all of my... There's something I'm missing, isn't there? There's going to be something really obvious that I'm not thinking about in that with regard to the total costs and total earnings. How could I earn something if I haven't sold anything yet? Again, another question that I haven't answered. I do apologise. All I can say is, this is an overview. It was never my intention to you know. I'm sure people are going to be cross and angry with me, and if you are, I apologise. If you have in some way found this helpful, these 3 videos, there may be more to come, not in this series, but I may do some testing. I don't know yet. I need to have a lie down and have a think about whether or not I want to continue with anything. If you have found it useful and informative in some way, shape or form, give us a like. If you don't subscribe yet, please do. If you want to leave a comment, feel free. And if you want to share this video, then please be my guest. Whatever you should choose to do. Thanks for watching.